Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different. Stepping into a world captured in writing, a specific time and place.
That's right. It feels distant, maybe, but as we look closer, you find these human experiences that are surprisingly familiar, actually.
Exactly. So our mission today is to dive into excerpts from this really compelling book. We want to pull out the key insights, about the people, the conflicts they faced.
And just the resilience of life during what was a period of huge change.
So the source material takes us to Yorkshire, right?
Yes, Yorkshire. And it's
Yeah.
set against this really stark backdrop. The Napoleonic Wars are raging, and there's massive industrial upheaval happening in England.
It's not just a setting, though, is it? It sounds more like a pressure cooker.
It really is. You see these big societal forces clashing directly with individual lives. It creates all sorts of tensions, shapes everyone involved. We're going to see how these characters, well, how they navigate this world that feels like it's almost fracturing sometimes.
And we're not just, giving you a clot summary here.
No, definitely not.
Our goal is really to get at the essence of it. What do these characters, their experiences, what do they really mean? What can they tell us about finding purpose or facing hardship?
And about connecting with others, especially when everything feels so unstable.
So what can we learn from stepping into their world that might resonate with you today? Let's unpack the insights from this deep dive.
Okay, let's start by setting the scene a bit more. Not just the place, but the feeling, the social climate. The text paints this picture of England being worn with long resistance from the war.
Worn out, yeah. And that leads to real economic hardship.
Absolutely. It even explicitly mentions famine. So this isn't just background noise, it's this difficult national reality that's pressing down hard on these local communities.
And what's fascinating, you mentioned the contrast, the text shows how differently people experience this pressure.
Exactly. You've got the very real threat of famine and joblessness for so many people, and then almost comically, you have some of the local gentry like these curates.
Oh, the curates, yeah. What were they worried about?
Well, the source says they're arguing, but not on politics, nor philosophy, nor even theology, but on minute points of ecclesiastical discipline, frivolities. Basically, trivial stuff.
Frivolities. While others are starving.
Pretty much. They're complaining about the lack of high society and how backward everything is. It just powerfully highlights this huge gap between their little world and the life and death struggles happening right nearby.
That really sets the stage for the industrial conflict then.
It does. And right at the center of that is Robert Moore, the mill owner. The text makes a point of his background. He's scarcely half a Briton with foreign roots in Antwerp.
The Girards of Antwerp, right.
Right.
And he didn't inherit wealth.
Quite the opposite. He inherited only debts, thanks to the French Revolution. So his entire focus, his driving force, is to rebuild the fallen house of Girard and Moore. He wants to restore the family name and fortune.
And his method is controversial, involving new inventions.
Yes, new machinery. He sees it as the way forward, the way to make the mill profitable again. But the immediate result for his workers, they're thrown out of employ.
Jobless. And did he care?
Well, the source is pretty blunt. It says, being not from the area, he did not sufficiently care about the impact on the workers. But then it adds something important.
What's that?
It says, in this negligence, he only resembled thousands of others. It wasn't just him being callous. It reflected a widespread attitude among industrialists at the time. This was the early phase of automation, new machines versus old jobs. Huge social unrest, like the Luddites.
Right. That context is crucial. It wasn't just a personal failing.
No, it was systemic. And this tension inevitably boils over into violence at Moore's mill. He clearly expects trouble.
How so?
He describes how he lit up his mill, got his men armed with firearms and all is loaded. He was ready for a fight.
And the attack comes. How's it described?
Very vividly, almost like a military report. Fierce attacks, desperate repulses, a battle movement, lots of shouting. It sounds chaotic and brutal. And Moore himself, how does he react?
He's described as incredibly composed, almost cold. The source says he speaks at last, and then there's a volley of musketry. He's said to have coolly invited on to death.
Wow, that's chilling.
It is. The outcome is grim. 1 rioter dead, 6 injured, the attack broken up. The narrator calls him a cooler, more determined commander.
So this scene, it's not just about the violence itself, is it? It's showing the harsh reality of this industrial conflict.
Exactly. And the kind of, well, calculated ruthlessness some people felt was necessary to survive or maybe succeed in that environment. It shows how these big issues, war, industry, play out in very personal, very violent ways, and how people react so differently, from the curate's complaints to Moore's defense.
Okay, so that's the public conflict, the mill. But the sources also dive deep into the private struggles, don't they? Especially for women. Let's talk about Caroline Hillstone.
Yes, Caroline. She's the rector's niece, just 18 years old. And she has this really poignant reflection. It's like she feels like life before this age was like a marvelous fiction.
A story? Yeah, but now, she says, the true narrative of life is yet to begin. That phrase just hangs there, doesn't it? Especially when you see how lost she feels.
Lost in what way?
She feels this profound loneliness, a lack of purpose. She literally asks herself, how am I to get through this day? And even wonders what I came into the world for.
That's heavy for 18.
It is. And her options feel so narrow. The text mentions becoming a governess as maybe the only plan likely to bring her hope of relief. But even that wasn't an easy path. It really highlights the limited roles available to women of her class, even educated ones.
And this internal struggle, it affects her physically, too.
Definitely. The sources note her decline. She becomes somewhat thin, her complexion was paler, she has dark circles under her eyes. She even says her heart is almost broken and calls grief her worst ailment.
It's like her quietness, the source mentions her quietly stitching pincushions. It's almost a symptom of this constrained life.
It really seems that way. Lack of purpose, lack of agency.
Yeah.
It has these devastating physical and emotional effects.
But then, in contrast, you have Shirley Keeldar.
Ah, Shirley. Yes, the heiress. Caroline sees her as this brilliant, happy, youthful creature, and she absolutely embodies a different spirit, much more independent.
She calls herself Captain Keeldar, right?
He does. And the first gentleman in Briarfield. She even jokes about filling in for the rector. It's not just being eccentric. It's her way of asserting a desire for the kind of freedom and agency usually only men had.
And she's quite vocal about wanting more from life.
Oh, yes. Very powerful passages on that. She says she wishes 50 times a day for a profession, for something absorbing. She actually believes that work, labor, can prevent us from breaking our hearts.
That's a strong statement.
It is. And she critiques the lives women are expected to lead, this stagnant state of things that makes them decline in health. She complains that their only goal is often just to be married, and even laments the overstocked marriage market. It's a really sharp critique of the limits placed on women.
So she's pushing boundaries. Does she find fulfillment elsewhere?
Yes, interestingly, in nature. The text describes her having this deep, inborn delight in the natural world. She finds Eden, a poem, in the twilight, in the fields. It's another way for her to find meaning outside those restrictive social roles.
And the friendship between Caroline and Shirley becomes important.
Hugely important. Shirley is initially drawn to Caroline's quietness, maybe wanting to protect her. But the connection deepens when Shirley realizes Caroline really gets her quester. She understood and responded to her own way of thinking and talking.
They connect intellectually.
And emotionally, yes. Their minds often chime sweetly in harmony. Shirley really values it, calling Caroline my daily pleasure now, her quiet, shrewd companion. It shows how vital those female friendships were for support and understanding.
The sources also mention other single women briefly, don't they? Miss Mann and Miss Ainley.
They do. Just quick sketches, but telling. Miss Mann is described as difficult, not quite a lovable person, maybe censorious, but also fundamentally honest, conscientious, someone who's known severe anguish.
And Miss Ainley.
She's poor, but dedicates herself to good works, like a sister of charity. She's seen as serene, humble, kind, and equable. These two just underscore the different, often very difficult paths unmarried women had to navigate.
So, amidst all this conflict and constraint, how do relationships actually work out? Or not work out? Let's look at Robert Moore again, his romantic side.
Right. Well, early on, he seems pretty cynical about marriage. He brushes off speculation, saying people have assigned me every single woman, but he'd never think about it. He even makes that cold comment about his horse. Gray mare is handsome and tractable, why not? Like, it's just a practical matter.
Ouch. But Caroline loves him.
Deeply but silently. It's a source of great pain for her. The text captures this beautifully with the image of her watching for his lamp at night. Her errand was to watch for this ray, her reward to catch it, just waiting for a sign.
Does he ever realize the pain he's causing?
Yes, later. When Caroline's very ill, he has this moment of clarity. He acknowledges that long pain I have wickedly caused her, all that sickness she owed to me. It's a huge shift.
A moment of empathy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It leads him to want to make atonement. And eventually, he does confess his love, promising to love faithfully, cherish tenderly. It shows how suffering hers and his witnessing of it can actually change someone's perspective.
Then there's his relationship with Shirley. That seems much more transactional, at least initially.
Very much so, from his side. He sees her youth and beauty and power, yes, but he's also acutely aware that her wealth offers the redemption of my honor. He even borrows a large sum, £5,000 from her.
And he admits this cynical view.
He does, quite brutally to Mr. York. He confesses he told himself he'd be rich with her and ruined without her, vowing to be practical and not romantic. It's incredibly calculating.
How does Shirley react when she figures this out?
Oh, there's a major confrontation. He implies she was trying to ensnare him, and she just demolishes that idea. She tells him straight, I never loved you. Be at rest there. My heart is as pure of passion for you as yours is barren of affection for me.
Wow, that's direct.
Absolutely cutting. It's not just rejecting him. It's a demand for respect and emotional honesty. It completely shatters his view of her and forces him into a different kind of self-reflection.
Okay, so that's Robert. But there's another Moore brother, Louis. His connection with Shirley is different.
Completely different. Louis is her tutor, teaching her French. Their bond grows through shared intellectual passion, reading Racine and Corneille together. Their enthusiasm had kindled to a glow, the text says. It's built on mutual respect, on minds meeting.
And how does Louis see Shirley?
He sees her depth, not just the careless, attractive thing on the surface. He appreciates her essence, finds fascination in her footprints. He has this great line, better pass half an hour in remonstrating with her than a day in praising any other woman alive.
He enjoys the challenge, the connection.
Exactly. Their dynamic is summed up in that my pupil, my master exchange. And when he confesses his love, it's deeply felt. For 4 years you have been growing into your tutor's heart. You have bewitched me. He loves her with my life and strength.
And her acceptance is quite unique too, isn't it?
Yes, she uses this intense, almost spiritual language about finding a son of God, a glorious bridegroom. It suggests their connection holds a really profound, almost sacred meaning for her.
One more key relationship, Caroline and her mother, that's revealed late, right?
Yes, Mrs. Pryor, who's been Shirley's quiet governess all along, turns out to be Caroline's long-lost mother. The reveal comes when Caroline is sick, and the connection brings her immense comfort. She says she felt altogether weary, and she held me up.
Finding that maternal connection must have been huge for her.
Oh, absolutely. Her joy is palpable when she asks, you know she is my mama. And the text hints at Mrs. Pryor's own hidden past, her suffering and sacrifice, which adds another layer to this theme of women's endurance.
So after all this turmoil, the mill, the constraints, the complex relationships, how does it all resolve? Is there a turning point?
There is, particularly for Robert Moore. His recovery from being shot seems to change him fundamentally. He feels lifted, ready to act. His perspective shifts.
How so?
He actually says, now I can take more workmen, give better wages, and vows to be less selfish. He sees his recovery as a second chance, acknowledging Providence's kindness. It's a real transformation.
And this leads to the marriages.
Yes. The story culminates in 2 weddings on the same day, Louis and Shirley and Robert and Caroline. Interestingly, this happens on the very day they're celebrating the victory at Salamanca, a major battle in the Napoleonic Wars.
So personal happiness tied into this moment of national relief.
Exactly. The sources even note who performed the ceremonies and gave the brides away, grounding these personal endings in that larger historical context.
And Robert looks forward quite optimistically.
He does. He talks about realizing extravagant daydreams,
Right.
rebuilding the mill bigger and better, improving things for his workers. It sounds like a hopeful vision for the future.
But there's a slight catch, isn't there? That final description of the mill.
Ah, yes. That's crucial. After Robert's optimistic vision, the narrator adds this detail about the rebuilt mill chimney being like the Tower of Babel.
The Tower of Babel. That suggests hubris, overreaching.
Precisely. It introduces this subtle note of ambiguity right at the end. While there's personal happiness, this image hints that industrial progress itself, even when well-intentioned, might carry unforeseen risks or consequences. It reminds you that individual lives play out against these larger, ongoing, complex societal changes.
And the author's final words add another layer entirely.
They really do. It becomes very personal. The author speaks of loss, losing people who understood me, but also about clinging to what's left and defending the faculty of imagination.
Imagination as a source of strength.
Yes, saying, it lifted me when I was sinking and allows them to give pleasure to others. It shifts from the story's plot to this broader reflection on finding inner resilience, purpose, and connection through creativity, especially after hardship.
So pulling it all together, this deep dive has taken us through a world really grappling with huge changes, industrial, social. We've seen characters dealing with constraints, loss, but also finding love and purpose.
We've seen them shaped by their world, definitely, but also finding ways to push back, to connect deeply, and for some, yes, to find a measure of happiness and resolution.
What really stands out to you listening to this? Is it the harshness of the times that fight for survival?
Or maybe the quiet strength of Caroline and Shirley finding their way despite the limitations.
Or perhaps the way relationships evolve, the misunderstandings, the eventual empathy?
And that final ambiguity about progress, that Tower of Babel image, what does that make you think about?
The sources definitely show that even when things are incredibly difficult externally and internally, there are still these moments of connection, growth, and the chance to rebuild not just mills, but lives, relationships.
It's a powerful reminder, I think, of that enduring human capacity to find a way forward, to find meaning.
Think about that contrast. The personal happiness found set against the potentially ominous image of the new mill, and the author's final thoughts on imagination. It's not a simple ending.
No, it leaves you with this sense of ongoing complexity. What does that say about how we navigate progress and find meaning in our own, often challenging times? Something to ponder, maybe?
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into a world of both conflict and, ultimately, connection. We really hope exploring these excerpts gave you some food for thought.
Yeah, if anything particularly resonated, or if you have your own take on the things we touched on, we'd genuinely love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Please feel free to leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this exploration, maybe give us a like, and definitely subscribe so you don't miss our future deep dives.
Until next time.
Keep diving deep.